On this episode of Get Real with Casey Kasem, I sat down with Jeff Bell of Football Guys and the Devi Royale podcast. We talked about what Devi is all about, being a Buffalo Bills fan, Twitter come to life at the Fantasy Football Expo, what he would do with his football cards as a kid that would make collectors cringe, retweet groups, remember those? Observational humor, and a lot more. You can follow Jeff on Twitter at ForWhomJBellTolls. You can follow me on Twitter at TheCaseyKasem, as well as the podcast at GetReal_pod. This podcast is a proud member of the DAP Network. This episode of Get Real with Casey Kasem is sponsored by my rad patrons on Patreon. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/Casey Kasem. Patrons will get access to members-only live streams of some of the episodes of the show, the ability to leave voicemail questions for upcoming guests, contests, and much more. And with that Patreon stuff out of the way, let's get into my conversation with Jeff Bell. I'm ready to hear it.
Yeah, no, okay, so 2020, I remember bumping into Casey, and just like everybody else, I got involved really in fantasy Twitter 2020 during that pandemic, but Scott Fishbowl week. And so you had a tweet, and you said, show me your roster, and I'll react to it with a GIF how I feel. And so I showed you my roster, and your GIF was just kind of one of those of like, I don't know about that one. And I ended up winning the satellite with it. So I thought it was it was fantastic. No, it's just one of those really funny, random little things that you just remember and you think about.
No, that is so crazy. Like, yeah, I remember doing that, and it was hard too to find the right one for everyone. I promise.
Well, sure
that was a lot of fun. No, that was a lot of fun. I don't know why I stopped doing that. I should get back into that. So we were talking a lot before we got started, or started, if you want to call it. But I'm just having a great time talking with you about like just the brief time that we had prior to me starting. Just to see how excited you are about fantasy football and the industry and everything is really cool to see. So I'm here with Jeff Bell, and we'll get into everything about him and his fantasy journey. But I'm going to start off, Jeff, and I just kind of, because I don't really know your like backstory. So growing up and all of that, how was sports involved in your life, and what other stuff did you have going on when you were growing up?
So I think for me, probably for a lot of people, my dad was into golf. My dad was into racing, like, and just these random things that I wasn't particularly into. And it really came to coming to football and coming to really football, baseball, basketball, those sports, because searching to belong at school and fit in at school, like even from a very young age. And I'm from a very small town. And so, I'm basically from a Friday Night Lights town that everything is football. I'm from Ohio. I've lived in Ohio my entire life. High school football in Ohio is religion. The Buckeyes on Saturday, then you roll into the Browns, Bengals, whatever it might be. And so there are certain pockets of the country that football, the SEC has grabbed that slogan, but football just means more in different areas of the country. And so I'm from one of those areas of the country. And really, I got into it just kind of looking to fit in at school, even from like kindergarten, I remember, and kids, I vividly remember kids were like, well, what's your favorite team? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know who my favorite team is. And the Bills were really good then. And they were like, well, you could like the Bills. I don't think anybody in the class likes the Bills. I was like, sure, let's go. Like, I'll like the Bills, and we'll roll with that. And then that was right in the precipice before they started losing every single Super Bowl. And so, I kind of lived through that. And then, you start out on a high there of a very good team, and then you have 20 years of being down, and I kind of earned my fandom at that point. But really looking for that belonging, and I'm a numbers guy. I'm a CPA, and so numbers always made sense to me. And I'm a collector. And it's just one of those that my mom is a pack rat, and I have some of that gene. And so I collected baseball cards and football cards, basketball cards, and what I would do as a kid that really kind of fed into fantasy football was, like any collectors out there are going to cringe when they hear this, but I would take all my cards and I would shuffle them all up, and I would make different teams, and I would have Dan Marino would be thrown to Jerry Rice on this team, and I would kind of work on, and I would have this notebook that I would keep all the stats. Like I would say, well, Dan Marino threw for 4,800 yards this year, and Jerry Rice had 1,800 receiving yards. So that's where those yards went on this team that I made. and I would just sit there for hours and just kind of do that, shuffle those up, and keep just making different teams and, playing out games in my mind. And I know that Scott Fish is somebody that I really look up to. He talks about his son doing kind of very similar things. And, that I did a lot of that. as a kid, and really that kind of rolled into, I'm old enough that I was pre-internet age, and so there was a lot of latchkey kids, not the right way to say it, but my parents worked different shifts, and I was home by myself a lot, and they did the best they could, but a lot of watching the same movies over and over again, and playing with my football cards on the ground, on the floor, and just kind of doing that nonstop, and really kind of. And as a kid, like I'm like working out batting averages for these fake baseball teams or whatever else. As soon as I learned how to do that type of math in school, and I was doing that all the time. So the coolest kid that you could ever imagine running across, I'm sure. But that's kind of really where that came into, and then it really kind of to get involved in the fantasy football space. Really, I got in my very first fantasy team. I vividly remember was on SI.com, and they would do the salary cap challenge, and you would. It was almost like DFS, but you would have like $60,000 or whatever it is, and you'd fill out your lineup, and that would score against your friends. And it was Kurt Warner's rookie year, and I had my whole lineup, and the first game I had Dante Culpepper in, but then Kurt Warner in his first game had a great game, and his salary was dirt cheap because nobody knew who he was. He was the cheapest quarterback, and I just grabbed him from week 2, and I just rode him out to the championship. I was able to have a stacked team because I had that cheap quarterback, because prices would go up and down, but if you locked them in at a cheap price, that's where you got to keep them at. So that was really my first fantasy experience. That bled into the traditional fantasy leagues that we've all seen and played for redrafts or whatever, one flex, 2 wide receivers, whatnot, and really doing that for 25 years now at this point. And content creation stuff was, even when I was in school, like I was always reading Sports Illustrated. Rick Riley remember vividly reading Rick Riley, reading Peter King, all of those. And all the kids would grab the Hardy Boys or whatever it might be. And I was always grabbing the Sports Illustrated every week from the library and reading cover to cover. And so I always wanted to do something with writing and creating. When I got into college, I was a little bit more practical, and that's why I became a CPA. I was a little bit concerned about the income that can be earned off writing, and when I was 19 years old, and so I went that direction, and really kind of getting involved in content creation. Really, it's just been not even 2 years at this point now. It was just kind of something that I came into later in life, saw the opportunities, and got involved. That story is starting out on Twitter 2020, and figuring out. I really wanted to get involved, like 2015, the DFS boom. I kind of poked around a little bit there. I met somebody from Roto Grinders, and I kind of started asking them some questions. And they kind of told me that if you're not doing DFS content, there's just no room for you at all in the space. And it was like, well, I was playing a lot of DFS at the time, but like I wasn't making that content yet. And so it was like kind of like, well, I don't know that I feel comfortable if this is really what I want to do. And so it's kind of one of those like, well, all right, I guess it's not for me. And, just kind of put it aside for like 5 years. And then 2020, it's just, I don't know. I think all of our mindsets in the pandemic probably changed a little bit. We thought about things a little bit differently, and it just kind of reached that point, getting into Twitter and seeing more and more, and then just said, like I'm almost 40. I'm at the stage of my life. If I'm going to do this, like, let's do it. Let's do it right and do it hard. And, here I am now.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, most people that I talk to on this show, like around the time of the pandemic, like came across fantasy Twitter and all the other stuff that comes along with that, and Scott Fishbowl, everything like that. So, just fantasy football in general. Do you remember when you started joined your first league?
Other than that Kurt Warner league, my first real league would have been probably my sophomore year of high school, around 2000, 2001-ish. So that area was when I did my first league, and we got into a group of my buddies in college. That high school league kind of fizzled out, and then a group of us in college got into it, and we had been in a long-running league. It still exists. It's morphed and taken different forms. It's now a Dynasty league. It started out as a standard redraft snake league, and then we started doing auction, and we started doing keeper, and then of course I was the commissioner the entire time, and I found out about Dynasty, and I floated it to the guys, and everybody wanted to do it. And there's only a handful of the original people still in it. It just life's happened, and guys have kind of peeled off here and there. We met new people in different stages of life, and they've joined up. So it's been long running that league, it started out on ESPN, and I can still pull up the legacy on ESPN of it being there. But we're all over on Sleeper now doing Dynasty, and we've done that we're in year three of our Dynasty on Sleeper now.
Wow. No, I don't think I could convince my home league or anybody to just like leave ESPN, but also then change it completely and go in the Dynasty route. Do you have a preference on? Do you prefer one type of fantasy over another? Do you prefer like redraft, or do you prefer Dynasty, DFS? What is your Devi? What is your favorite thing?
I would Dynasty is probably my favorite. Just kind of that having that mindset, just being obsessed with team building and really getting it to pay off is a thing. Because it would always be so frustrating because I would go super deep and in the redraft league I would have like 15 guys that I would love to stash and that I couldn't, and you just didn't have the bench space for it. And then the guy would go off and it'd be like, I was the first guy on that. I know that nobody in my league was on him when I was on him, and now he's gone. He's somebody else's, and he's theirs for, especially when we were doing keeper, like now they've got him for 3 years. And it's just like those type of things. And so Dynasty, it would be my favorite. I love it all though. I play DFS every weekend. DFS is the one that it's just a tough nut to crack. I think that if you're not really into it and really either playing at the high volume to get enough lineups in, or if you're not really getting in there and maximizing your lineup, I think it's just a hard one to play. So DFS, I do a lot of, I do showdown like for every single game, and I just throw a buck in for whatever game and just kind of do it that way that, I might be watching a random Jets Ravens game at 1:00 on Sunday, and I just have a showdown lineup there. So, and then I'm doing content for that as well, and contributing to consensus ranks on DFS for football guys. And so I love doing that. I obviously do a Debbie show, so I play Debbie, and then I'm very into college football, and that just is one of those that I grew up watching college football. I love college football. I love the draft process. That's kind of where it leads into Dynasty there. Redraft is always going to have a special place in my heart, like for many other people. That's how I started, and that's really how I played for 20 years. Now it's kind of one of those, I prefer just to do redraft for charity leagues and just kind of do some of those. We're together in pros with Joe's in that league, and then Scott Fishbowl, obviously, there are other opportunities. And I always say, like, if you got a charity league, I kind of prefer best ball at this point.
Yeah, right.
But if you got a charity league, like, let me know and I will join it, and I would be happy to help out. So I'm in a bunch of those, but yeah, I do kind of prefer best ball in that format now. But and then like best ball playing underdog, and my good friend Dave Kluge, obviously he's way into that, and so we do that all off season long just to prepare and just do hundreds of drafts through the season.
Yeah, that's rad. And like I think that if more charity leagues were, as you said, best ball, then I think that's like the thing you should get from this podcast. If you're going to do a charity league, that's how it should be, because you probably get more people. And that's just, you got to think, for the kids or whatever.
Yeah.
No, but for real, like for the kids or whatever. But really, like Scott Fishbowl, like really is one of those things that has really exploded the fantasy football charity league type of thing. It's like, I really think that was one of the things that just blew it up. And I think that's awesome that we have so many charity leagues out there now and everything. Do you have a specific, when you're drafting, do you have a specific type of draft you like to do over the other, like snake draft versus an auction, for instance?
I love an auction, and so I've been able to make good friends with John Bosch, and John Bosch is one of the most creative minds in the space.
Yeah.
And so I've done a couple auctions with him, and those things are just crazy. That's like completely next level, like multi copy, like open bid, slow auction, crazy stuff. My absolute favorite is just a fast clock auction. We did one, my friend Steph, Dave Kluge on Corey Spalla, on Kevin Coleman, Christian Williams, everybody, all my good friends on the Expo on Saturday night. We did one after the party, and we just got we launched a fast draft at our Airbnb, and we did a fast auction, and it was an 18 league, and it was just crazy to do that. It was just so much fun. It was just to be in person an auction, I don't think there's anything that beats that in fantasy football.
Man, you know what? I'm gonna need to get some people together. We need to do a draft at the expo next year. Like, hit me up because like that sounds so dope. And I
It
don't
was
know
awesome.
why. Like, that just sounds yeah. So the expo, I'm kind of doing this podcast backwards or jumping around here, but I really
Yeah.
because you're touching on some subjects that we've both experienced, and like with the expo, not everybody's been able to be fortunate enough to attend the expo, but for those people that haven't been to the expo, what was something at the expo that like blew your mind that you never even thought in a million years like you'd be seeing happen?
Um, Gosh, I mean, just Twitter come to real life, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah, like just, and it was just one of those that I don't know. Like I feel like we have very similar minds. I know I've followed you, and you talked about your journey of like discovery of ADHD and going through that process, and like I'm like in the starting state. Like I can't get anybody to meet with me.
Yeah.
But my wife is early childhood, and she knows, and she's like, you have this, and so it's just one of those like my mind's going a million miles per hour, and
Right.
when I'm on Twitter, it's like I'm just flying through like a million miles per hour and seeing everything, and then so for it to come to life and be like, oh, there's them, and yes, you, yes, yes, and it's like Twitter in real life. Like this is just really cool, and just having those everybody's just being so laid back and just having a good time with it. Just like meeting just people that you just never even imagine, and you just find out they're the most down to earth possible person you could meet, and how similar we all are, and that's really where a lot of it comes down to. Like I always say that like all of us are that friend or that league mate that we just care a little bit too much about fantasy football. Like we have
Ye-
the other league mates that are just kind of like, oh, I'll set my lineup, or oh, you sent me a trade, I didn't realize whatnot. Whereas like, yes, I sent you a trade, and I would like a response, and my lineup is set, and I've got my waivers set and everything else. And so I think that we are all kind of that. You're all just kind of searching for belonging, I think,
yeah.
throughout life, and you have that. I was a friend that I just cared about sports a little bit too much, and so like hanging out with friends and be like, oh, you want to talk about sports, and like, yeah, it comforts me to some regards because I feel like that's where I know that I can talk about, and like
Yeah.
I don't know like the conversation where you want to go to or whatnot sometimes, and some of that plays into it too.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was mind blowing to see how many people were there that all had the same common interest, and just how many people I didn't even know like that were there. And then there were people that were
Yeah.
there, I didn't. I mean, you see people and then like you forget, or you didn't get the chance to take a photo or talk to them because or they're there, but there's so many other people, so it's just crazy. That's why multiple years keep going, just keep going, and you can meet and meet and meet. But yeah, it was awesome to see, and this community and everything. How did you come across the Twitter community exactly?
Um, Randomly, I want to say I feel like it was maybe it was on Matthew Berry's podcast, the 06010 podcast, maybe that Scott Fish was. I remember uh, hearing of Scott Fish at some point, and I think he's just the great ambassador for the fantasy football community, and I think he's just brought so many people into the community. I remember hearing the conversation about Scott Fishbowl, and then just kind of poking around and starting to follow Scott and starting to follow the people that Scott interacts with and starting to follow, and it's just so much of this is like you uncover layer after layer, and you're like you just keep going way down the rabbit hole, and then all of a sudden you kind of get the whole picture of like, okay, these are the people now, and like these are so and so likes this and he likes that and whatnot, and like these are our commonalities, these are things that we can talk about, and so many people are just open to meeting new people and welcoming new people into the space because we all share a passion, and I think that's rare that you find a big community like that shares a passion like that. But that was really kind of where just peeling back those layers and just kind of going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And in 2020, I think when so many, I feel like there's probably 1,000 of us that in 2020 that have the same story, that you just kind of start down that rabbit hole and you fall all the way down in, and you learn about different podcasts, and you learn about different websites that you could potentially work with or write for, read from, you do, and then Scott Fishbowl week happens, and it explodes. And and I think that that's one of the things that I think that people struggle to remember that. And I thank you for asking me that question, because it's nice to remember like that. And I think a lot of people in the space don't think about that journey for themselves, and they kind of in those one of the things that I was talking this weekend with Matt Waldman, and Matt Waldman's somebody that I've come to know, love, respect, and he was just talking about some of my first experiences, and just like how people have forgotten about the first time they did that, and so they don't necessarily I don't know. It's really funny. It's just a silly little thing, but I was third in ECR week 3, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. Everybody's gonna be like, great job, Jeff, and it was like crickets, and it was just one of those of oh, okay, well, I'll get back to work on the next week. But talking to him through that, and he just put it in perspective that I think a lot of people have just forgotten those first, and forgotten that excitement of the first time something happens, and so they don't necessarily share that with the new people that it happens to, because you just you get into your routine, you get into living your life, and kind of going about your day. And so I think it's really important to remember, and that's one of the things that I remember. Your why is something that I believe in, that remember why you started doing this, and so that, I don't know, it's a roundabout way of answering that, but that's kind of where I got involved.
When I guess the surge of people joining the fantasy community on Twitter, where I've never been on anything but Twitter for fantasy. Yeah. I've never been on any of Reddit or anything, which that's just my personal preference. But I've been on Twitter for a little longer. So for a while longer, I just was following because of podcasts and stuff like you were saying, getting that, and then starting to follow more. And to see when that wave started happening and when it started growing and growing, which is so awesome to see how everybody's just grown during this time and found their voice. So when you're putting out content for the first time, how are you going about coming up with exactly what you're going to put it out? What kind of ideas are going on in your head when you're first putting out content?
I would say when I very, very first started, it was just a shotgun approach almost, of just I had just so many random ideas that I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to write, and I've always loved writing, and that's always been a major passion of mine. I loved writing in school. And so being able to tell stories, it was something that I knew that's what I wanted to do. The podcast stuff was, I kind of realized that in order to progress, take steps, that's a necessary thing that you need to do, but it also allows you to meet people, like we're doing right now, and build those relationships as well. And so adding that in, when I first started writing, if you go back and read my first stuff with Going for Two and with Fantasy Intervention, it is the most random, crazy stuff that I think you could probably read, because it was just, I knew I didn't have any interest in writing I wasn't going to be a Matthew Berry clone. I wasn't going to tell the story and go into here's my start sits, or right. Here's my ad waivers. I wanted to write I want to write thought-provoking pieces, I guess, maybe just look at, research different topics, dive into things, and talk about game theory type things, those interesting ideas or trends that I'm seeing in football, and really kind of, I love to what we do on the college football, the fantasy, or the Football Guys college football show, and it used to be the Debbie Royale, is we really just kind of talk about football, as opposed to talking about fantasy football, and just kind of bringing it back that layer. I think that there can be so much, if you just talk about football, people can learn so much and then kind of take their own inference off of it. And you're kind of taking that extra step beyond, well, this is the player that I think you should start this week, or this is the reason why you should add whatever quarterback because he's averaged this many fantasy points coming up. And so to be able to do that and build that second step and build that extra understanding of the game. And that's what a lot of the people that content creators that I look up to and respect and follow, they've been able to do that and teach you more about football, and to allow you to make your own inferences off that. And that's really kind of what I would like to do, or kind of try to gear my content towards. Some of it, I feel like moving up to Football Guys, it's kind of, I've lost a little bit of that just because you're hitting like things that need to be hit in order to go to the consumer base. It's a little bit, and Joe, and during the off season, it's fantastic of like, if you got an idea, run with it and go with it. And but during the season, it's a little bit more like, this is the cycle. It's come to expect, like, this is what the consumer is looking for in this window. And so it's been a lot of, that would be the first thing that I would tell people of like, if you, when you get started in it, just write, just crazy, random, whatever it might be.
For sure.
and really learn and exercise those different things in your mind. And so that's what I'm really trying to look for and trying to create.
And I really do like how you brought up that when you moved up to, when you moved to Football Guys, how like during in season, there's certain things that people are looking for. So, because that's how, and it was kind of a different, like when I was writing for the fantasy footballers, it was like that as well, which is totally cool. And I'm all about that because I need structure in my life to help me but like, it kind of like took me, kind of shocked me because I was writing for a site where I could write whatever I wanted. And I know that there's a certain, and that's just how it is. And it's totally cool. But like you said, the off season is also an awesome time to be able to put out content that isn't the normal stuff that people are, out looking for. So that's cool. I mean, I said that like really sarcastic, so that's cool, but I meant so that is cool. I wasn't trying to be sarcastic, but no. So how did you go about though finding a place or finding places to put out your content?
So, I mean, Twitter, but it was one of those that there was one website that had put up that they were looking for writers, and I just wrote a sample and sent it in, and they said no. And it was my very first time, and it was kind of like, oh, well, okay. And it was one of those like moments too, like I talked about 2015 getting started, just one of those of like, all right, well maybe this isn't for me. And then kind of I went quiet for a little bit, and then there was like a one tweet that somebody kind of just put out, and they were like, I'm looking to get started making content. How do I do that? And I just replied on that. I was like, I'm following this. Like, I'd like to see as well. And my great friend Jay Felicio reached out to me, and Jay is one of the most kindest, altruistic people in the space. And he reached out to me, and he was writing with Going for Two at the time. And so he got me involved talking to Jeff Lambert, and Jeff Lambert is fantastic, just a great person, and he just runs a fantastic site that is a great place for people to get started because Jeff will give you guidance. He'll get you set up, and he'll be like, this is how you need to do it. And then they'll be like, write what you want to write. Like, do whatever you want to do. And, it's really on you in order to do that. And then doing that, and then that was kind of the time that fantasy intervention was really just exploding and going off. And if you're in the space like in 2020, everybody remembers fantasy intervention. If you were in the space then, it's just really kind of hard to describe what was going on kind of that year. But Chase Vernon and Chase has been fantastic. I reached out to Chase. I was like, hey, I'd really like to get involved with this. I've been following you all season long. I love what you guys are doing. I'd like to get involved in that. And so he brought me in, and Chase really taught me a lot about the business and like a lot of behind the scenes. He's a fantastic mentor, and he really is very passionate about teaching people about the fantasy business side of it. And so through that's where I met Dave Kluge. I met Steph Smalls. I met all my friends now, really. And it was just like a clubhouse vibe, like really kind of that company and that the chat and everything, and just kind of hanging out there and just getting to know everybody and really building those relationships, and then carrying that through, and then kind of just riding the wave with that for a little bit. And then things changed there, and I got an opportunity through Jeff Lambert with Fantasy Pros. And so I worked with Fantasy Pros for about a year, really kind of one of those that I started out my way through that door was I started doing Devi content for them, and they were looking for somebody to do Devi content. So I got involved there. I got on the email distribution. Blaine Blotz he's the editor over there. They have ideas that you can write distribution list that goes out every month. And so I got on that, and I just started writing random stuff. And so then kind of worked my way up through there, and then just goes back to networking is a lot of it. And, I knew like before I even got started at Football Guys is like my holy grail of being able to, and that was just I did Matthew Berry's RotoPass and got involved in that in like 2014, 2015, just forever ago. And so I had been following Football Guys for almost 10 years now at this point. And, the Audible, listening to the podcast, it was my ritual. That show starts out talking about rituals, routines, and Sig's voice on there. And it was like every Friday I would go home from work, I'd mow the lawn, and I'd listen to the Audible from Tuesday night or from Thursday night. And that was kind of my routine, like reading the site and all the great writers over there. And so networking, getting to know Joe, and obviously connection with Dave certainly helped in that regard, and being able to kind of work my way in there, and eventually they're going to realize I'm there and probably kick me out because I'm not smart enough and good enough to be there. But no, that's really just kind of been the journey.
That is so cool because like I've been on Twitter for a while, and then when I started getting into fantasy football, it was like 2011 or so, like finding the content on the internet and finding Twitter and stuff. Like I was already on Twitter, so I was like exposed to it then. And then to see like just when COVID hit and everything, how many people joined the space and brought content. And so now you have all of this content to take in instead of just like a handful of podcasts or a handful of, authors or whatever was going on. And YouTube was just out of the picture because like nobody was putting out video content the way that they are now. So it's just really cool to see how you guys came in and were able to put out like such awesome content. And when you're getting your content out there for people to see, do you have any tips or tricks on how to get more people to get their eyes on things, or is it just kind of like up to luck?
I don't know. I think that so much, even in like the last year, in the last 2 years, so much has changed in the space. I think that in 2020, it just seemed like everything was way more open, and I think that there's so many shows and everything that have left the space. It seems like it used to be in 2020. It seemed like any random weeknight, you would open up Twitter and you would see 15 different live shows going on. And now I feel like you don't see that anymore. And so it's hard. I feel like I'm incredibly fortunate because in reality, they're a dirty thing that people don't like. Retweet groups, I mean, are kind of a necessary evil. I feel like if you're getting started in the space, and like, I'm not really involved in them anymore. But I think that's finding, but so much can grow out of those. And I think that there's, I don't know, there was just so much animosity and like just taking things down. I feel like over the last year or 2 years about some of that stuff, but like that, finding a group of like-minded people going through the same thing that you're going through at the same steps of the journey, being able to help each other out, being able to share those types of things, I just think are invaluable. And I think that our space that we're in, and everybody talks about it being high school, but they talk about it like from like the social side being high school, and whatever, that's whatever, and whatever, leave it where that is. But like I view it like high school in terms of classes, where like you had like the seniors and then like the juniors, and then like we came in all together, we're like the freshmen, and we're all like wide-eyed and we don't know what to do, and like you're able to build relationships with people going through those same types of things, like, and that's really thinking through life, like that's really the times that you are able to make those new friendships, those new relationships, is like your freshman year, basically your freshman year, sophomore year, when you might go to a new college and you're meeting other freshmen, or you might go to a big high school, a bunch of schools come together and you're meeting other freshmen. And so that's where it's like the social side, whatever drama, whatever it might be, like I leave that behind, but I look at it in terms of being like high school, in terms of like coming in together, learning together, supporting each other, sharing this experience together, sharing each other's content, getting it out there, and really just kind of, and that would be find friends like when you get started, like, and find friends that are at your level, because as you get into it, you're talking to, I'm sure you probably talk to the same people every day. I talk to the same people every day. And we're at the point now where we've been doing that for years now, and you've built those relationships. It's hard to welcome new people into those circles, those areas, and it's just life, and it's not like a bad thing or a negative thing. It's just that you've built up that trust and you've built up that camaraderie, that relationship. It's hard to welcome new people into those types of things. So find those other new people that are going through, that want to get involved, and build those relationships that way, and build that way, and help each other out, share each other's content, reach out to people that ask for some help. Like I'm happy to retweet some stuff. Like I don't get very much stuff shared with me anymore in order to retweet it. I'm happy to retweet stuff. And like things like that. It's just I don't know. It's all, but I do think that things have changed over the last year, 2 years in the space. Just doesn't, I don't know if it was just because there was such an influx of new people that it just kind of forced the floodgates open in that regard. And
we didn't have anything else to do.
We didn't have anything else to do either. Yeah.
That was my thing, is I couldn't leave the house. So it's like, well, I want to talk to people, so I'm going to get on and talk with other people.
Yeah. And well, it's life has been hard since 2020.
Yeah.
Like just navigating, like if you have a real job, and whether you're work from home or you're going back into the office, there's a lot involved in going back to your workspace, wherever that might be. There's a lot involved in that. There's a lot. It just seems like the world in general, people are, I'm in a client service industry. Like people are just not as nice as they used to be. Like even like outside of Twitter, like just in life, it seems like you run into people like on the street that they're just not as nice as they used to be. It's just like everybody's just, I don't know if everybody's a little bit on edge based on everything that's just going on. And there's just so many, we've just been stressed out for the last 2 years, and everybody's just tired. And everybody's that's probably tired. A lot of it. But it just kind of seems like people just aren't generally as nice as they were.
Truth. I can feel that. But for the nice go of it all, you had talked about the retweet. I just want to talk about the retweet groups really quick, because I totally forgot about retweet groups. Like totally forgot about it. I was in like a handful of them. I'm probably still in some that just like died. But wow, you just blew my mind coming up with like something from my past that I totally forgot about. And you say past, but like 2 years ago or whatever, but still I totally forgot about that. So
that's and like there was just so much discussion about that, and like people getting frustrated about those things, and then
just leave them.
People well, and I think people just stop doing it, and it's but I also at the same time, I don't think that there's that much new stuff getting written, and like it just doesn't seem like, at least I'm not seeing it. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like I'm seeing new articles or a lot of these small websites. I'm just not seeing it anymore. And I don't know if it's, and I will admit that I don't know, it's part of the journey, but like my experience on Twitter has changed dramatically in the last 2 years. And, I have somewhat of a following, but so it's plus or minuses with things. There's trade-offs there that people don't treat you the way that they used to, which in turn causes you to have different experiences, which I've pulled back a lot on my timeline, and like I've narrowed things, and like I don't see a lot of fantasy content on my timeline, to be honest with you, because I see a lot of I see a lot of beat writer stuff. Like I'm trying to follow team news, and I see just so many random joke like things and videos, and like that's just that's what I've interacted with, and that's where I've gotten to the point. But Twitter makes me laugh like so much. Like there's so many funny things on Twitter that I just find it interesting when people like get swept up in the drama, whatever it might be, because it's like there's so many funny different random things on this website and uses for this website that like that's where you're gonna spend your time, like doing it. Like let's have fun, let's laugh at stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I totally get that. Well, I totally get like with Twitter too, like there's a lot of crowds that are all stick to football and that's all they want to see on their timeline, versus like people who want to have a good time. Sorry guys, people that want to have a good time and talk about other things besides just fantasy football. So do you think that comes into play when it comes to like how people act on Twitter when they're coming off a little aggressive?
I'm sure that that's probably part of it, that like I follow you, that I'm following you for a reason. I'm following you because I look in your bio and I see football guys that I'm expecting to get football stuff from you. But I don't know. It's like it's 2022. Like people are going to put their lives in different things out there. And I think that one of the things that I struggle with probably on Twitter without even realizing it, of like, I don't know, like there's so many things that can be taken as like microaggressions or whatever else that like are not at
Yeah.
all. Like I'll
Yes.
tweet like,
Thank you. I'm sorry you said that because that hits home. Keep
yeah, well,
talking.
no, but it's like not like I tweeted like last week. I tweeted like, oh, people were really putting Justin Jefferson above Cooper Kupp because they thought he would be Cooper Kupp. I'm people. I did it. Like it's
Yeah.
like I'm not attacking anybody with like I'm dunking on myself with this
Yeah.
tweet or like and like I would. It's like just there's so many things of like, are you coming at me? And like,
Yes. Oh
no,
my
I'm
god. And they
coming
come
at
in your
myself.
DMs
I'm
and they're
coming
like,
at myself. Like
bruh, come on, man. I wasn't that
like
man. But if you got a
apparently.
conscience, I don't know what to tell you. But
Well, I had a tweet on Monday, and like my tweet was like basically like if Ken Walker's on your waiver wire, make sure that like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Leonard Fournette aren't there too. And like people are like got so mad. I'm like, well, people play in different sizes, and they're 50% owned on ESPN and everything else. And it's like, well, first off,
oh my god.
like I that got a lot of traction, and I saw subtweets off whatever is going on there. But like that, there's different ways of sharing consumer and sending those messages because
Yeah.
I look at it as like those are the guys that I'm putting him with now that he's the running back with the Seahawks, and I know that subtlety's dead and inference is dead on stuff, but a lot of what I tweet is like I'm trying to shape a message of like if you're seeing Ken Walker here and you're seeing Leonard Fournette in the same tweet, that should fire something in your mind that like are those similarly valued players moving forward. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
not everything is like really when I tweet something, it's almost never aggressive, like never. And
Okay.
it's I just dunk on myself a lot, and I see random things that like I generalize and whatnot, but it's just funny like how people can just get very very into it.
Well, good to know that I'm in the same boat as you and that I'm not
Yeah,
like by myself over here. So,
but it feels like we're by ourselves quite often because
yeah, yeah. I don't know, man. Maybe I just need to learn how to tweet better. I don't know. Oh, so you brought up Devi earlier, and
yeah,
there are people out there, surprise, surprise, that don't know what Devi is.
yeah.
I mean, I didn't know what Devi was just a little while ago until John Bosch and everybody else. I don't know who told me. Katie Flower, somebody I talked to. I don't know. But that's how I jumped in. I don't do it, but that's how I like tried, and then was like, I fail. But for people that don't know what it is, I'm just rambling now about Devi. Go ahead and explain exactly what it is for people.
Well, I mean, if you know what Dynasty is, you know that you've got usually the best way I describe it is you got Dynasty and you've got your taxi squad and you have some college players on your taxi squad. Is basically you've used some of those draft picks early, more or less, and you're holding those pieces, and that's the simplest way. And obviously there are so many layers involved, and you can play college fantasy football, you can play campus to Canton leagues, hybrid fantasy leagues where you're playing both college and they move up to your NFL league. But that's the simplest way to describe it. And really, people just, I feel like it's the niches get dumped into buckets, and it's like IDP or like Devi, and it's like people are like, "Wow, that's next level." I don't know that I could play that, and it's like, well, if you watch college football, you probably know who the good players are. You probably, and if you don't, they're the guys at Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia.
There you go.
So just kind of get those guys. Or like if you for IDP, I really enjoy IDP, but it's like everyone's like, "Oh, that's next level." I couldn't play IDP, and it's like, well, do you know who Aaron Donald is? Like, do you watch football on Sunday? Like, do you know who Micah Parsons is? Like, if you know who the TJ Watt is, like you have already broken down a lot of those doors of playing IDP. It's not the scary thing of not. I don't know. It's just one of those that if you enjoy college football or if you enjoy actually watching football on Sundays, like there's just different game modes that seem scary before you step into it. And the other thing is people are afraid to be bad at it or people are afraid to
Yes.
fail
Yeah.
and it's I don't know. I play in John Bosch leagues, and I am getting my ass
Okay.
handed to me, to be honest with you, because like there is just there was one league that I'm 1-8 in, and I don't even know. I don't know how in week 5 I'm
How?
1-8, and but like how have I played 9 games in week 5? Like only in
Oh
John
my
Bosch's
gosh.
world. But
John Bosch.
no, but it's just so much fun. Like and it's just one
Yeah.
of those that, and I think that it's a lot of it. I'm in too many leagues. I'll be the first person to tell
Mm,
you that, and so I think that when you're
yeah.
at that level, it's like I remember the days of being in 2 leagues and like was like live or die. Like if I won that week, I'm thinking
Yeah.
about it in like my one of two
You're
leagues or
checking it
whatnot,
and checking it and checking
checking
it
it through the
again.
games, and
Oh
now
my
it's like,
god.
I would hear people talk about like, oh, I just check after the games, like I was always like,
This
how do
is
you not
so.
know exactly what Julio Jones needs to do in this game in order to win you this game? And it's like now I'm at the point of like, yeah, I can't even possibly check it
Yeah.
like during the day. Like I'm just watching football again, and it's freeing in some ways, but it's also it makes you. I'm not afraid of failure in that regard there, and so I'm willing to try new things because in some league I'm failing. Like I know that, in the other leagues I'm not. But it's just I don't know. It's all just fun.
So, to be involved in Debbie, do you think that you should be watching college football, or do you think that you can I mean, I know you said if you know, but, like, college I don't watch college, so it's like, could you think I'd still be okay at playing Debbie, you know what I mean?
Well, join the Debbie Royale Patreon, and you're certainly gonna be okay there.
There
But
we
and,
go.
or listen to the football guys college football show, and you'll be okay. No, I mean there's enough content out there now. Camp Scan's a great website, and they do great work over there. Destination Debbie Ray, those guys are fantastic. They do great work. There's enough resources now that, and if you got connections in the space and you know people that they'll help you. People will be more than willing to everybody wants to grow it, and so people would be more than willing to reach out, follow them, help you. So you don't need to be watching college football, I would say, to do Debbie. Consume draft content. That's where a lot of it comes out of, and kind of look ahead to those next guys, and that's really where it comes down to. Of like, Debbie is just trying to guess your rookie draft a year in advance. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really all it is. And it's like, and you can watch college football and add that extra element to it, but it really just comes down to trying to guess your rookie year or your rookie draft a year ahead or 2 years ahead.
Which, I mean, you're basically guessing when you go in anyway, because by the time the season's over with, you're like, "Ah," so, like, why not? Um, the only reason I was like, "Ah," when you were talking earlier about, like, everything was when you said John Bosch, because I was in a league with John Bosch, or one of his leagues, and I'd never done any of that. And don't just jump in like that, like, kind of,
Yeah.
like, don't just
No.
go John
No.
Bosch right away, like, take your time and
Yeah.
test some other stuff out. No, John knows. My wife met him at the or at the expo and was just like, "You're the guy with the crazy rules and the crazy, bylaws and stuff." He's like, "Yeah, that's me."
Yeah. That's I play in a couple leagues with John, and I just my only goal is to just not make John mad.
Yeah, he'll just like you know screenshot whatever you're asking anyway. Like he'll be like, "Whoa, whoa, here's a screenshot. I answered that question already. It's right there."
Yes.
Like, uh, this is not a John Bosch podcast. So anyway,
John's
um,
fantastic though.
I'll go listen to whatever episode. I'll insert it right here at yeah. Anyway, so with like leagues and everything, what would you say is something that you look at when you're determining when you have you first of all, have you ever cut back on leagues or do you just keep adding?
I'm going to cut back this year.
You're going to. So I can ask you like how are you going to determine which ones you're cutting back with? How do you go about cutting it down?
I think the most important thing with leagues is who you're playing with. That's
Yes,
always
100%.
who you're playing with is really gonna, and people that are like you that you enjoy spending time with, like that's gonna always be the first determining factor. I think that, and then just kind of probably league styles, things like that are probably a big part of it too. What do you enjoy doing? Are you in a bunch of random leagues that you just struggle to understand the rules or whatever it might be? Are you in a hyperactive league? Are you the trade addicts league, but you're just so busy that you're just not able to fulfill your obligations? I
Yeah.
feel like that you're stepping into to join some of those leagues with Russ and those types of leagues. Like it really just kind of those, but the people people are everything. Like, and that's
Yes,
the
100%.
thing. And the people that you play with is the most important thing. That's really what fantasy football comes down to is really building and learning and maintaining those relationships. It's just connectivity. It's just a way for us to connect with people.
Mhm. And that is 100%. I'm like only in Russ Dynasty Outhouse, if you guys know. I'm only in his Dynasty leagues like nobody else. So those are my Dynasty leagues, 3, because I know the commission. That's important, is to know who's also your commish, because like, you know, some people are lazy, no offense, but no offense to myself, but I'm a lazy commissioner, so I could never. So when you get into a league that's a little bit more challenging, do you feel like you have to do more research and more like grinding to try to figure, or is it the same amount no matter what kind of league you're in?
The work that I do and the prep that I do, I don't know. I'm digging deep. I'm doing ECR every week, my rankings every week, and I rank 185 wide receivers every week. So I mean, I'm going as deep as they go. Doing dynasty rankings up to 400 people, so 400 players. I mean, so I'm digging as deep there. It's not a different level of research. I don't think it's just my frustration. I just wish I had more time to do trades. And that's kind of what a lot of it is, of like,
yes,
I love to do trades, and that is the one thing that's really suffering, I think, from being in too many leagues, of not having the time to do that like I would like to do it, and to really actively manage teams like I would like to do it. And you're just kind of like, as things come up, like, sure, let's like do that trade or whatever. But like, I'm the guy that you get in the league, and like, I'd be sending like 3 offers a week to everybody in the league, like, if I could. And that's the one thing that's just disappeared. I just don't. The time's not there for that.
Mm-hmm. So for people who have never actually gone through the experience of trading, because like, especially in redraft, it's really hard to get people to trade. Yeah. So first of all, are you able to pull off trades in your redraft leagues when it's allowed?
I used to be, but that was, I don't know. The information, I think, has changed dramatically, probably from when I did a lot of those. I don't try anymore. You're in too many dynasty leagues. I'm just not gonna. I don't know. And like, so that's why I try to stick to charity leagues there, and a lot of them don't even allow trading. So, and a lot of them preferably are best ball. So, but it is so hard to do trades in redraft. It really comes down to, I don't know. People do trades on buys, and like, I'm the type of, like, I don't care at all about buys, and so you get so many trade questions about, well, I got this guy coming up on a buy. Like, should I make this trade for this guy? And it's like, no, like, just fill a random dude in. It's 1 week,
right?
But it's as situations change, I mean, that's really kind of where trades would come from, injuries or whatever it might be, and kind of, I just think a lot of those. I don't know. I played fantasy football, for long enough that I saw when there was a research edge, and I saw that when you were able to, people didn't realize that, like, probably shouldn't be doing too many 2-for-1s. Like, you shouldn't be on the one side of 2-for-1s and those types of things. There used to be a day when you'd be able to swing those types of things that I think the conversation's gotten out there enough now to, like, people just don't do those types of things all that often anymore.
No, they don't.
So yeah. So that's it's just very, very hard, I think, to do. And I see a lot of trade questions, and a lot of the trade questions, I'm like, are you guys just bored? Because, like, you're basically like, I understand, like, if you like this guy a little bit more and he likes that guy a little bit more, okay, sure, do a trade. But like, it's like, you want to trade Justin Jefferson for Jamar Chase? Sure, man, do it. Who do you like more? All right, cool. Like, I don't know.
Trade Addicts needs content for their podcast, so
hey.
Oh, is there anything like the stereotypical trade things that happen during trades that bother you? Some people have a certain thing where they're like, oh, that bothers me during trades, or are you not too concerned with how people go about doing trades and stuff?
I mean, I'm usually the one that'll accept. I'll just be like, cool, you're in the ballpark of, like, you're close enough, like, whatever, done deal. I don't know. I'm not somebody that's going to squeeze every little bit of value out. I wouldn't say that there's things that, I don't know. Hypothetically, I would prefer to live in a world where you've at least looked at my roster and thought about the players that you're sending me when you're sending me a trade. Hypothetically, and live in that world. That's the world that I like to live in. But I, admittedly, because of time constraints, I've gotten to the point where I'm just like, I like this guy on your roster. I don't want this guy on my roster anymore. I'm just going to offer this trade out here, and you're probably going to say don't do it anyways, but I'll just throw it out there anyways. And, maybe you'll say yes, or maybe you'll give me a counter and I'll accept it. But other than that, it's just, but that's really kind of take that extra time. I think that and talk through things helps
Yeah.
kind of sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I'm like type of like, I'm just so antsy about it, and like I'll talk to somebody and they'll be like, I'll do that, and I'll be like, okay, accept it. Like, make sure you accept it, because I'm worried
Let's
that you're gonna
go.
say you're gonna change your mind
You're
here.
gonna change your
Um,
mind.
no, but
I
it's
go.
like I'm vehemently anti-trade veto, and I like to be
Yeah.
in leagues that instant trades that, you know, we're two adults, we
Yeah.
agreed to it, you know, we're trust each other, and you trust the people in your
Yeah.
league.
Should be. Yeah.
I see so, I don't know, like Twitter's a weird space, and you see a lot of people, and I'm just kind of, my answer to, I don't know, like I don't say this to people, but I'm like, playing better leagues, because if you're concerned about collusion or whatever in your league,
Yeah.
play with better people, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's something that even enters my mind, that I could be in a league with somebody that would be colluding, and like a lot of that maybe it's just got to the point where I'm playing with industry people that are like, they're friends, like, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I
Friends.
trust my friends not to be colluding in a league, basically. But that, I mean, that's a lot of it, but I don't know, I always hate that, being in a league where you have to wait 2 days after the trade's
Oh
done for
my
it to
gosh.
process. You're just kind of
Oh my
like,
gosh.
no. As soon as I learned about the world of instant trades and dynasty leagues, then I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, we agreed to it, deal's done, your team's my team, good.
Yeah, I thought that's how trades went when I first started, because I was like, "You have to wait 2 days? Like,
Yeah,
why?
yeah,
Why?" And so then I was like, "I'm just commissioning my own league next year." And then I was like, "Oh, you don't have to." So,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, totally. And I'll also sometimes think I'm sending people, I look at their roster and think they need this. I send it and
yeah,
they're like, "Well, I actually don't need that on my roster, so I don't know what you're coming at me from." And that's what gets me. I'm like, "Dude, I tried to look at I'm sorry, you're wrong." But
yeah.
so,
Well,
so there is an art to trading.
they're absolutely, and I love it. It's my favorite thing.
Yes,
Like,
so
the art
fun.
of trading is my favorite thing in fantasy football. And like, I had somebody, my brother-in-law, in my home league today. Like, I was like trying to do a deal. Like, I was trying to get Debo Samuel from him, and he was like, "Well, I don't like what, like, why do you think that I would want these pieces?" I'm like, "Well, you've already traded Terry McLaurin and whoever else for 2023 first, so it doesn't seem to me like you're trying to win right now. So I don't really understand why you've got him on your team if you're not trying to win." And he was just like, "Thanks. Like, why do you think I'm not trying to win?" I'm like, "Because you traded all your good players for draft picks. That means you're not
Yeah.
trying to win."
Yeah. I finally I finally grasped that concept. I started
Yeah,
doing that and I was like, why do I have so many first? Oh yeah.
yeah,
Um I love it. So football guys, I've had a bunch of people on here,
yeah.
including Joe Kelly. And everybody's been so awesome. And I love everybody with football guys. It's such a great group. How does it feel to be part of a group like that? And then also I want to know, like, how did you transition over to football guys?
So I got involved with football guys the summer of 2021, and Joe reached out to. It was a couple months after Dave Kluge had started with them, and Dave and I, we worked together at Fantasy Intervention. And he just became my best friend in the industry. I talked to him every day, and so he got involved with Joe, and he had told his story in the previous episode. And so listen to that, and check out Casey's other episodes and find out all these other things. But no, I got in, and I knew Dave, and Dave certainly told Joe about me, and Joe brought me in the summer to do just write a couple articles of like kind of a guest appearance type thing. And so I wrote a Travis Etienne article when he was a rookie, and it was very, very well received. And then Travis Etienne got hurt like 2 weeks later and missed his entire rookie year, because that's the world that we live in. But
Yes.
so then that really kind of started to build that connection, and it's just one of those that it was my dream destination, where I wanted to be. I'd followed Joe for years, and just started having those conversations with Joe, and kind of, this is what I can do. And he when I got started, it was one of those that we like to hire people in January, and I got started in the summer, and so rolling into the season, it was everything's kind of spoken for. And so I spent the season working for Fantasy Pros, and Fantasy Pros, great people over there, and very, very fortunate to have come to know a lot of those people. But I didn't feel like home, just because I kind of knew what I wanted out of where I
Right.
wanted to write from, and I kind of had an idea that obviously football guys is it. So once the season ended, Joe reached out to me immediately. We had stayed in touch and talked throughout the year, and we had conversation, and was fortunate enough to join the team. And so now, kind of almost, I mean, I technically have been there for over a year just from when I got started, but it's 10 months now, so that's kind of crazy. That's going fast, but then being there, I don't know, it's like kid in the candy store. It's Rich Rebar always says that, like, we're working in the candy store. It's just wild to see just how smart and how dialed in and how experienced the staff is, and just talk about football on the next level. And there's just no drama at all, and there's just nothing. It's all respect, and it's all just a very, very nice place to be, to have. And there's nobody saying, well, you're an idiot, like, because you think that. It's just and there's a lot of maybe gentle course correction of like, well, I'm not quite sure what you're seeing there or whatnot, like those types of things. But it's just very, very knowledgeable, very, very respectful, very, very just good people, bottom line.
That's super rad. And how many times have you gone to the expo?
I've been twice. So
okay. So did you get to meet a bunch of football guys, staff members in person?
Yeah, I did. So in 2021, the first year that I went, there was a football guys dinner that I went to, because I was a kind of contributor at that point. And so I met everybody then, and got to know people then. And then this past year, I was fortunate enough, I had dinner with Joe a couple times, and he somehow asked me to be on a panel with him, and that was just wild and next level. So I got to do that, and just kind of building those relationships. It's just funny because I don't know, you experience it with everybody, but like you have text conversations with people and whatever else, and then part of, like, before the end of the first expo, there's kind of like, is this real? Like, I don't know. It's just and even like, doing the podcast, like, but like, part of me is like, I've surely lost my mind, and I'm sitting in a padded room somewhere, and like this is just way too surreal to actually be real. And then to experience that in life, and even then it feels like surreal to be like, hey, there's Dave, there's Corey, there's stuff like that. This is weird, like, but this is cool. Like, and like, everybody is just, when you talk to people, like, in day by day, when you hang out in person, you're like, I already know who you are, but like, to take that next level and actually spend that time together and realize, and that's one of the nice things of, like, that first year, it was like, oh, you're Joe, like, oh my goodness, like, and like, now it's just like, hey Joe, how are you doing? Like, it's just that difference.
Is there anybody in the industry that you haven't met that you want to be, able to see face to face and have a conversation with?
Matt Harmon is somebody that I was fortunate enough to play in they did a Yahoo listener league, 5 years ago or so, and I was fortunate enough to play in that. And so that's somebody that I've been able to talk to, and I did a show with him, and we, he was kind of somebody that, even before I was nobody, before I was anybody at all, he would answer DMs and we'd talk a little bit. And when I was like, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to get involved in the industry. And I reached out to them. I was like, what do you think about it? He's like, go for it. Do it. Like, do it. And so he's always been very positive. And I don't talk to him nearly as much as I'd like to. Just, he's very, very busy. And I'm very busy as well. That's somebody that I've just looked up to for years now. And then I'd love the opportunity to meet him.
He's probably one of the biggest reasons why this podcast even exists, is because he was like, because I wanted to do something like Backyard Banter, and I wanted it to be similar to that. I listened to that podcast, and Matt was so good at what he did, and I was like, I want to be able to do that, and like some sort of like talk show interview type thing, and help people out as well. So like, and being able to talk to him on here, like you said, it's just, that's somebody I look up to as well. So it's super dope to be able to like talk to these people and talk to people that you never in a million years, like, thank goodness the internet was invented, because like none of this would be happening. We wouldn't know anybody. We would, we just know our the people around us. We wouldn't never meet you, never, never be able to talk to you and never know you exist. So it's just crazy to think about that whole thing.
I was thinking the exact same thing last week after you had asked me to come on the show, and I was driving around and I was like, this is just cool. This is just very, very cool that we're able to do these things, to meet these people that just share interest and get to know them and realize it's just so much of like, I don't know, if your only exposure to people is 6-second bursts on 100 or 280 characters, whatever it might be, like your mind can erase of like, what is this person really like, and whatever else is going on, and there's so much inflection and whatever else that can be inferred in things, and it's just, I get so much pushback. One of the things, I get so much pushback for being arrogant because like and it's just so funny because so Sigmund Bloom is somebody that I look up to greatly, and in Sigmund Bloom, at one point he said say it with your chest, like take out, like don't say I think when you're going to say something, just say like, because you can have a tweet and you can say I think Alvin Kamara will be a top 12 running back, or you can just say Alvin Kamara will be a top 12 running back. And he said that there's, by removing I think out of that phrase, it adds a lot of power to it, but it also, like, there's just no in situations, I feel like so often in social media of like, because if you do that, it's a stronger statement, it's less characters, it's able to get across quicker, and but it's also apparently arrogant. It's just like, I don't know, it's just like, and people don't be so certain, and it's just like, well, I am certain because I've done the work and I believe in this, and I'm gonna
obviously I'm thinking it anyway.
Yeah, you say it with your chest, you're thinking it anyways, go ahead and say it.
Somebody, I don't know if it was, I don't know where I saw that, but I saw the same thing, was to take the I think, or if it was me or whatever, so like, I totally get that. And I don't think it's arrogant at all. It's being confident. And there's a difference between being arrogant and being confident.
Yeah, but like, I am so rife with imposter syndrome, and like, if I belong in this space and whatever else, like the idea that I'm arrogant about stuff, it's just like, it's wild to me. Of like, if you took the time to get to know me, it's just like, it's not me at all. And I don't know, it's just funny of like, it's just, allow your mind to race, and if you're only seeing things in certain contexts, and if you're inferring negativity, and I think that's something that happens a lot. People infer the negativity into things, and it's like, I always say, like, if you're reading my tweet, just imagine I said it with a smile, sitting at a bar with you, basically. Like, almost every single tweet is like, because there are things that make me laugh, that there are observations that make me laugh. I love observational humor. I grew up on Seinfeld, so observational humor is something that I really enjoy, and I try to bring to the fantasy football space, try to bring that entertainment level, especially in tweets, just funny things that I'm seeing. And it's not like, I'm not attacking anybody like that. It's just like, but so many people will be like, well, what's your problem or whatever. And it's nothing, really not.
No problem, thanks. Yeah. There you go. That's how you deal with Twitter sometimes. Podcasting, what is your podcast all about? What is it exactly? And why did you come up with this podcast?
So the Debbie Royale, now the fantasy, or I need to figure this name out because I feel like I'm stumbling. We just started this week. Last night was our very first episode on Football Guys. So the Football Guys college football show. And it's like, in my mind, I've said it one way for the last 18 months, and I need to flip that switch. So the Football Guys college football show, we started out, and it was really, I was kind of getting into the space. I knew I wanted to do a podcast, and Kevin Coleman is one of the nicest people in the space, and he was one of the very first people to reach out to me to have me go on a show. And at the time, he was doing a kind of a show like this, where, one-on-one and talking about a topic or whatnot, and he had me on, and we were able to make that connection. And Christian Williams was somebody that we bonded over Justin Fields at Ohio State, and Justin Fields being quarterback 1 in the draft class. And it was just really funny happenstance. Like, it was one of those that I had seen a lot of his tweets, and I'm like, we're kind of on the same wavelength with a lot of stuff here. And we just kind of, it was one of those of like, it's like almost like Step Brothers, where it's like, did we just become best friends? Yes. Like, we had this a tweet about Justin Fields about that, and so conversations kind of started between the three of us there, and then Christian and Kevin didn't know each other at all. And I just kind of brought everybody together and I said, hey, I have this idea, and I would like to do a college football Devy show, for lack of a better term, a Devy show. And I think that Christian was very deep into the scouting world and the draft world. Kevin was very, very into the college world and college fantasy world. And I was like, I think we have shared interests. I think we are personalities that mesh well. And so that's kind of the genesis. And it was one of those that we talked for like 3 months before we did our first episode, just with a group chat, the three of us, just getting to know each other in that regard. And we made the decision early to not have guests come on our show because we just wanted to build the rapport between the three of us. And I think that that's one thing that I think that your show, or like what Dave does, is fantastic to have guests on. But I think that at the same time, like if you're starting out a show with a couple friends, I think too often that people will have guests and you're not building that natural camaraderie, that natural flow between whoever it might be regularly on the show. I think oftentimes. So we made that choice. We decided we weren't going to have guests come on, and so we built it up, and we did. Really, the easiest way to describe it would be, it breaks it down into 3 different seasons. And so if you listen to us during college football season, we are getting you ready for that week's college football games. We are going through the previous week. We're talking about the games upcoming. You can listen to our show. You're going to have a good idea of what you want to watch on Saturday. We play games at the end. We pick games. It's one of the, we have a competition between the three of us running on taking picks against the spread. And so that's what we do in season. Then once the season ends, we flip hard to draft mode, and we do only draft content to get you ready for your rookie drafts in your dynasty leagues. We hammer that for 3 months or so, but from January, the Senior Bowl, through the actual NFL draft. And then we kind of put that to bed, and then we cycle more towards that Devy, towards the preview stuff, and get you hammering those next year. The Devy, like you listen to the summer episodes, we're talking a lot of Devy there, where we're talking about our favorite 2023 quarterbacks or our favorite 2023 running backs, and building that concept of like, let's build the class out for you. And Kevin does a fantastic article for Football Guys where he does a top 36 big board for like next year. So you can check out Kevin's article on Football Guys, and the idea behind that will be like, that's what your draft's going to look like next year in your rookie draft. And that's kind of where he's seeing it on that. And Christian does a great series where he's diving into these players one by one and kind of really teaching you about those. And we did a draft guide last year through the Devy Royale where that whole guide, you can read that through the Patreon, and that'll get you ready for your rookie drafts. But that's really where it kind of breaks down into 3 different areas where, we're kind of touching that dynasty, that rookie draft, and then we're doing Devy content. And then right now we're just a pure college football show.
Had you gone on podcast or done any prior podcasting before you put up what you're doing now?
I had done a lot of guest spots. That was the one thing I think that was fortunate about getting started when I got started, because I was fortunate to get into a couple group chats that like everybody was looking for guests and be able to do guest spots and be able to do a lot of those. And I've done, I feel like the first year the first spring, I had like 3 shows a day almost of like just different guest appearances, like just doing them. And it was fantastic because I really, you're drinking from the fire hose at that point. I'd never done it before. And, things like not saying, and whatever else, it's like, you just have to break that out of you basically just from doing reps. And so, that was one of those, and I don't know, I was always nervous to do it. And finally it was just like, it was New Year's Eve, 2021. I had a couple drinks and I just decided this is it. And I ordered a microphone and I was like, this is what I'm doing in 2021. I'm finally going to be on podcasts, and I'm finally going to, because I had through the fall of 2020, I was almost just kind of a lurker, like a watcher more, and I would interact with a lot of people, but I would watch the shows during the fall and would do a lot of that. So kind of had a good idea what I was stepping into, but just took the plunge and bought a microphone and then said yes to everything. Just say yes to everything. Like you get started, just say yes to everybody. and meet people that way and do different things. And so I said yes to everything that came across my plate and just kind of got those reps. And then, now it's got narrowed down quite a bit. I think there's just not as much in the space as there was before, but I'd kind of make active choices that I just don't have the time. Like, I'm going to be kind of selective now a little bit, and it's nothing against anybody. It's just, I work a career. I've got a family. I've got very major commitments to football guys. And so it's just, something's got to give.
100. I get it. And the little light bulb went off in my head when we were talking about like doing so many. Yeah, I did so many podcasts right when like everything shut down. It was just like constant podcast constantly. And then I was like, how, going back to work and stuff, I'm like, wait, how was I able to do that? And I was like, oh, because I was like relaxed because I didn't have to go into the office. And, I got my work done early because we didn't take a lunch and all this other stuff. So that's how. So podcasting, and I mean, obviously you talked about kind of having the time where you got to know each other before you guys actually went into it and everything. For somebody who's just starting out and they're wanting to not do a podcast by themselves, but they want to have co-hosts as well, what kind of advice do you have for those people when they're out looking for other people to join them?
Look at who you enjoy interacting with on Twitter is probably the main one. The people that you follow, that you interact with daily, that you kind of learn, and people that was the other thing. Like I was a lurker on Twitter basically for 6 months and kind of had a good idea of like, you guys are my guys. Like, this is, and like there was no second choices of like, if Kevin and Christian had said no, I don't know like what would have happened, because like there was no like plan B on any of it. Of like, I probably would have just been like, all right, well, we'll see what else comes up, I guess. But and I would say, that would be the first thing. Build those relationships. I can't, if you're getting started in the space, find other people that are getting started in the space, and meet those people, and maybe make a group chat of like 8 of you or whatever. And it need to be a 60-person group chat that people get upset about. Is like, find 5 of you, 8 of you, throw it into a room, talk to each other, get to know each other, and do those types of things. Because we talked previously about like, circles get tight in the space, and part of it's just necessity of the space, but part of it's just natural human interaction. It's just very, very hard to maintain relationships with more than, I feel like, 10 people a day. It seems like a lot to maintain a relationship with 10 people a day. Seems like a lot, much less to really get out and in that regard. And so circles get tight, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just think it's part of natural human evolution and part of how relationships are built. And so if you're feeling like you're outside of circles, find other people that also feel like they're outside of circles, and make your own circle. And I don't know, it's just kind of how it works sometimes.
And I love when new people come in and you can kind of spot somebody. It was like, wow, that person has something about them that's going to make them blow up in this space, could be something big in this space. I want to get in on it while I can. I love being able to find people like that. So it to me, I think it's really awesome to see the new people coming in. So don't be scared about it per se. I mean, obviously you're going to be scared about it. Everybody has a little bit of anxiety at first, but we're all here to help out. Like, this is a community. I know some people think it's just competitive. I need a full-time job, so I'm gonna elbow you, and then all that stuff. I'm not. I'm a lover. I'm a lover, not a fighter. So but yeah, it's cool to be able to like talk to people on this app and meet people and have people that'll take you under their wing and all of that. So when people come to you with advice, are you one of the like, are you, when you talk to people and kind of like help them with their journey, are you one of those people that's open to help other people out when they reach out to you?
Absolutely. That is the thing that I believe in, beyond anything, because I remember being in those shoes, and I remember wanting to create content and not knowing the first place to start. And so that's one of the things that I've and talked about Jeff Lambert before, and I have talked to him about One of my things, like I'll occasionally send a tweet and be like, if you're looking to get started, like I'll be like, if you've got a company that's looking to hire, let's throw them on here and let's
Mhm.
give somebody somewhere they can go. Or like I put
Yeah.
out a couple weeks ago, I had a tweet like right after the expo. I tweeted of like because I talked to Joe about like some of the guesting stuff and like I just felt terrible about I just feel bad saying no to people.
Yeah.
And so I talked to him about that. And one of the things I decided to do is I put out a directory on like if you need guests for your podcast, like go to this directory. And I just tweeted out like, hey, if you're a podcast that is potentially looking for guests, or if you're looking to do guest appearances, let me know. And I have this Google sheet that people can look at, and it's an entire got like 30 people that are on there for the guest list, and like a half dozen or dozen or so podcasts that are looking for potential guests. And so that's a tweet that's out there in the world, and come to me, and I'm certainly happy to share that of people that are looking to be on shows. And I remember wanting to do this for years and
Mhm.
not knowing the first place to start, and thinking
Right.
like, well, if I
Yeah.
want to do fantasy content, I just have to be in the same elevator as Matthew Berry just
Yeah.
randomly one day. Like
Exactly. That's what.
that's the only way I could possibly
Yep.
do this. Like and so that's the one of my biggest things that like I just want, because being able to, this has been tremendously fulfilling in my life, and it's scratching things that I never, it fills that hole that you're walking through life with for so long of like, this was the road not taken, like back when I was in college. Basically, like this is what I wanted to do before like practical me took over. And so being able to do, and I want to pay that forward. I want people to be able to have that same thing, to be able to realize that creativity, to be able to, if you like writing, or if you want to just talk football, you want to make friends, and just that you can talk football. Because that's one of the other things of like, we can just talk football and we can get down and
Yeah.
we can talk about, whereas like you go to Thanksgiving and you're with your uncle or whatever, and your uncle watches just that Browns game, and you're like, oh, and he's like, who's that Chargers quarterback again? Is that Justin Herbert? Is he okay? It's just like, yeah, I can't have this
Yeah.
conversation. Like, and
Yep.
like my wife will be at parties, and like we've been married for almost 10 years now, and she knows me, and she'll be like, there'll be a conversation like that going on. I'll just walk away, and like people will be like, well, I thought he was the football guy, and it's like she just knows it's like I can't do that, like that type of
That's
conversation.
hilarious.
No, but it's just yeah. So that's one of the biggest things, being able to pay forward. And it's like I feel like I lack confidence in the content that I'm creating, and so like I feel bad like critiquing on stuff, and like I run into situations where like I can be a very aggressive editor. And so like I've had a couple of people that were like, can you edit this for me, or like let me know your thoughts, and then like you give them that feedback and they're like crushed, and I'm like, uh, I'm sorry, like these are the things that I see,
Sorry.
that like this is the way that and your style doesn't need to be my style. But like
Right.
I believe in aggressive word choice. I believe in concise messages. I believe in not wasting space. And yeah, I do think that a lot of what I read in the space is like, we have this mentality when we're in school, like we're in English class, and you're like, you need to write a 3-page paper. And so we can make it a 3-page paper, but it might only be a 1-page paper. But like in fantasy football content, don't write a 3-page paper when you write a 1-page paper. Like write the 1-page paper. You don't need to
Yeah.
write the 3-page paper. And so that's one of the things that I firmly believe in. And so I'm certainly open to give feedback. That's one of the, it's hard for me of like finding the time to do that. And that's the
Right.
one thing that if I were full
Yeah.
time in this industry, like that, probably I would have more of myself open to those types of things, because that I just don't know where it comes from right now. Is a lot of
Yeah.
it.
No, I get that completely, and
Yeah.
also put you on the spot asking, like, if people come to you, because like, you're not gonna say, "Screw those guys, I'm not coming to help you out."
I'm a big believer. I believe in the philosophy of, if I don't have the answer, let me at least put you in the
Put
direction
you
to
in the
get the
right, yeah.
answer. And,
Somebody,
and
yeah, because
that's
people ask me questions about stuff I have no clue, but I know
yeah.
the people who do.
Yes, exactly.
And, also not just putting you on the spot about that kind of stuff, but Bills, favorite
Yeah.
player of all time.
For a long time with Thurman Thomas, it's Josh Allen now. I feel like, and like I don't know, it's Thurman Thomas was
It's
when I
okay.
was a kid, but it is, but I don't know, it's weird because it's like didn't have a quarterback for 20 years, and like it's just one of those of like he's just so much fun and he's so good, and but like it was so he wasn't supposed to be good, and
Yeah,
like
he
being the
wasn't. They
Bills.
were they were like, nah,
Wrong Josh and like everything else. Like because Rosen
yes.
was wrong Josh, and so he's not supposed
Hmm.
to be good. And so it's like, as a Bills fan, it's just like very hard for like you're waiting for the bad thing to happen. It's
Yes,
like is
I
my
get
life
that.
as a Bills fan is just waiting for the bad thing to happen. Like waiting for that day of like whatever magic Josh Allen discovered to make him a great quarterback is just going to go away, and he's just going to be like overthrowing guys by 50 yards again and whatever else. But he's and the other thing too. It's funny as you get older because I feel like it's weird to like have somebody be half your age and be like, "Oh, he's my favorite player," because it feels like that feels like a childhood thing of like
Yeah, it does kind of, doesn't it?
like those are my idols, like those are my favorite players,
Huh.
and like it's weird as an adult to be like, especially like being like way into college of like there's players that I really enjoy, but it's like weird for like my favorite college player of all time is Will Allen. He was a safety for Ohio State, and he played for the Steelers for a number of years, and he was in college when I was in college, and so that was
Hmm.
like one of those
Hmm.
things of like this is a peer, like this guy, and
Yeah.
he just always had. I played defensive back when I was a kid. I loved defensive back, and he just always had a knack for like the big game changing interception or the big game changing play, and so that. But it's like I can't imagine now having a new favorite college player. Like I can't imagine as a 40-year-old man being like, well, this 19
Yeah.
year old is my favorite player of all time now. It's just like
Yeah.
it's just funny to me of like that just feels like a childhood thing of like, and so it's
Yeah.
weird that Josh Allen would be my favorite Bill because it's like I shouldn't be like, but at the same time, it's like I just love that guy.
I just, well, when your team is doing stuff to put a smile on your face,
Yeah.
you gotta give props where props are due. And like, I'm sorry, but in the past, my team, okay, so my team's the Dallas Cowboys, so
I
obviously
know.
my team was, yeah, so
Yeah.
my team's the reason why your childhood was
Oh,
like depressing.
I very yes. I
Yeah,
have a very
yeah,
tumultuous relationship with the Dallas Cowboys
yeah.
organization that
You
as a
and I
kid.
both, I'm
Yeah.
telling you. Yeah. But that's, yeah. But I love seeing these Bills fans that have been Bills fans for a while that are like, and the reason why is like also I love it. I love why, people the backstory, because my backstory is I was born into it, right? This is what you're gonna like. And
Yeah.
I was just like, cool, cool. And and then luckily for me, they were doing well when I was a child. So it was even cooler. So totally, totally. Do you watch a lot of football like on the weekends or in like Thursday night, or are you like how much football do you watch? Too
Football's a
much?
religion, Casey. I watch as much as
I
I
know
possibly.
you're from a place where like
Yeah.
life
No. It's
is football, but
yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, it's hard for. I don't watch as much as I would like to. Like it was one of those like when I met my wife, I was like, you need to understand that football is a very very big deal in my life. Like it was like you need to be
yes.
comfortable. And her dad was a high school or a college running back, and her brother was a college running back, so she got it. And
Yeah.
but it was just one of those of like this isn't the type of thing of like football's a very very big deal in my life. Like you need to know this. Like before we get into this relate, it was like the first thing I told
Yeah.
her. It was like I'm not trying to scare you
Gotta get
off
it out
here.
there.
I'm just gonna be honest with the reality.
Yeah.
But I've got 3 kids now, and they're 7, 4, and 1, and so I have Red Zone on during the daytime on Sunday, and that's we really don't have TV on during the daytime except for during football season. If there's a football game on, TV's on.
Hmm.
But like during the daytime with the kids, we don't really have it on very often the rest of the year. But yeah, if there's a football game on, it's on my TV. Is kind of it's at least on a TV in my house like type thing. So yes, I
Yeah.
watch a lot of football, but I don't. It's I don't know. I watch a lot of football. I don't watch as much as I would like to watch. I don't have the opportunity to dive back into games that I would probably like to have,
Hmm.
just because the, the way my schedule works out, I guess. But I watch as much as I possibly can.
If you had like an extra hour every day, would you spend that doing more football stuff, or do you think you'd find something else to do with your time?
I would sleep.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
asked
I
that to
don't
somebody
know.
else. They didn't say sleep, and then I asked somebody else, and they were definitely about sleep. So
Yeah, that's the
I
one.
say sleep, but
I don't know. I mean, I would probably would fill it with something, I guess, but I would love to have an extra hour of sleep. Like
oh
I
man,
it's just one of those too of like I feel like it's like you I know myself, like I have had kids for 7 years, and like I was always kind of an early riser anyways, and so like if I get to 7:15 in the morning, like I'm fine.
yeah.
But it's like that like 5:45, like I'm not like type thing, and so it's like if I had an extra hour that I was able to sleep till 7 a.m. every morning, like I would be in a much better mind state, and that's where I would use it. But I like to say to be productive, but I don't know. My mind is all over the place. I'm bouncing all over the place like all the time. And I would like to say, I feel like the right answer is spend it with family, but, and that certainly would be part of it.
Let's all
But
take a nap.
yeah, yeah, let's all take the daddy nap is a thing that happens in the house of like, dad's watching you like, hey, why don't you snuggle in the bed and we'll put something on and daddy's going to nap for the next
Nap.
45 minutes.
I remember those days as a kid. Oh, my mom was like, "I gotta take a
Yeah.
nap. Come on,
Yep. Yep.
guys." So what do you like to do in your free time, though? I know you're a family man. You've got, your kids and your wife as well. Obviously, I don't want to say because you obviously know.
Yeah.
But what do you like to do for free time?
I like to golf. But that's something that has kind of gone away with kids because I can't really go out and golf at 9 o'clock at night. So, if
No.
so I was a high school golfer, so I do like to golf. Yeah, just like all like music, TV, video games. Like I don't know. That was the type of kid that I was growing up, playing video games, having uh, the same 80s movies that I've seen a million times on the TV all the time. Like I grew up out in the country, and there was not like wasn't like I grew up in a neighborhood where kids were running around and playing all the time. I was to myself a lot, and I don't know if that's I don't know if I'm wired that way or if I became that way, but I am a little bit of a loner when it comes down to if I have free time, I'd throw a movie that I've seen or binge watch a show and play video games at the same time is um, what I really like to do.
I don't remember if I asked you this. I know on the previous I've already done one of these tonight and my brain is like
You're
scattered.
good. You're good.
But when you were growing up, did you have siblings?
I did, yeah. So I am the oldest of four. So I have a sister that is a year and a half younger than me. I have a brother that's 7 years younger than me, and I have a sister that's 13 years younger than me. So there's a big spread between me and my youngest sister. Me and my oldest youngest sister, we're pretty close together, and it was one of those that growing up, like we were just fought nonstop. And then it was like we just and it was so funny because we just fought nonstop. And it was like I wanted nothing to do with her. And then it was like the moment I like left for college, it was like it just switch flipped of like I miss
Yeah.
you. Like why do I
Yeah.
miss you? I didn't want to be. I spent the last 18 years not wanting to be around you. Why did I miss you now? It's like, and so we've been since then we've had a very close relationship. My brother is in the army. It's just one of those that like he's not into sports like I'm into sport. He's just in the army. He likes cars. Like he just
Hmm.
our interests don't overlap very
Right.
much. And like the 7 year age difference was like just kind of old enough where like we're just in completely different things at different times. And so I don't have a super close relationship with him. Like I'd love to have a close relationship, but it's just sometimes people are apples and oranges and some of it. And so you hang out, love each other and whatnot, but don't talk to him a lot. And then my youngest sister is kind of a lot like me, which like my so I'm a loner, and like this is about as gregarious as I get. Like I don't you see me at the expo, you see me in public, or you see me whatever. Like I'm generally a pretty quiet person. And my sister is usually the more outgoing one, but my youngest sister is also a quiet person, and so like we're the type of like when we hang out, like we go to a movie or whatever, drive in the car, and like we just sit with each other and we don't talk about much, But it's just like I enjoy being in like the same room as you, but like we don't talk about a lot of stuff, like type thing. Whereas like my other sister is like pulling it out of people.
Okay, one more question before I have you plug all your stuff and tell everybody exactly who you are, not like they don't already know based on listening, but I want to know, can you say that the Bills are going to the Super Bowl, or are you not going to say anything like that because you don't want
We're going to lose to Patrick Mahomes every year for the next 15 years because we
to?
traded away Patrick Mahomes, and so I can never allow that idea in my mind that we're actually going to make the Super Bowl. I am the type of Bills fan that we traded that guy away. We've already lost to him the last 2 years. We're going to keep losing to him. So so that's
Didn't know which kind of guy you were going to, how you were
you
going to go
know
with that,
I
so.
don't know. I don't know if I'm superstitious or maybe just a little stitious, but no, it's just one of those that I just the idea. I don't know. They're so bad for 20 years. The idea that
Yeah.
they could actually win the Super Bowl, like my time as a fandom started out with massive heartbreak, then just
Mhm.
bad and apathy for 20 years. And so the idea that
Mhm.
they can actually break through and do that just seems so wild and far fetched to me. And it's really funny because I'm a Ohio State Buckeyes fan, and so I've seen the Buckeyes win multiple championships in my lifetime. So like every year with the Buckeyes, I'm like, if we don't win the championship this year, this is a massive disappointment. This is my expectation: go out win the championship. Whereas the Bills, I'm like, if you guys just make it to the Super Bowl, I'll be so happy. And if you win the Super
Yeah.
Bowl, I don't even know what I would do with myself.
And I'm over here like, if we could just win one playoff game, I'd be so excited.
Well, I was there like 2 or 3 years ago. It was
Yeah.
that if they could just make the playoffs, I don't even know what that would be like. And then, you make it, and you're like,
Yeah.
if you can just win a playoff game, that would be so cool. But then now, the
Yeah.
way that they've lost the last 2 years, you won the AFC Championship game to the game that I repressed that game so hard. And like I've never been like I was after that loss. And it
Yeah.
was just one of those like I was just like catatonic almost of like I couldn't even process it. And then it was
Oh,
so
man.
weird because I just like suppressed everything. And then when they kicked off this year against the Rams, it's like my emotions like flooded out of like all the things like just hit me so hard to like see them back out on the field again. And it was just like a very surreal, weird feeling of like, okay, clearly I did not deal with that loss in a healthy manner. And now I'm dealing with those things now, like 8 months later. But that it was just it's such a surreal, like just weird. Like even the off season, it was like I didn't. It was like I didn't allow myself to like dive into it and like really of like, well, they got Von Miller, cool, okay, well, but like it wasn't like it was almost like I had disconnected my fandom part of myself like from me for like a period of months because I just couldn't even deal with the massive disappointment.
Well, to go from your weird emotions, if you will, the weirdness of it all, to actually tell us, we're just gonna go right into who are you? Like, where can we find you? Where's your stuff? And all of that jazz. Anything I forgot to.
No, you can find me on Twitter at for whom J Bell tolls, the number four. You can find me with footballguys.com. That's where my podcast. Check out the Football Guys College Football Show. You can find me putting content out on the website. I write if you're a Dynasty player, I write an article that comes out every Monday that really just dives through just it's a hodgepodge. It's really like lets my brain go on everything that I saw from the weekend. Kind of go through. I write a story about what I saw from the games, and then just dive in through interesting stat stuff or things that keeping an eye on, and I have that come out on Mondays, and then I'm the editor, and I kind of put together. We do a couple more roundtables throughout the week, where if you're a dynasty player you can we do rankings movement on we're going to release that on Thursdays, and that comes out and that kind of gives you up and down who's moving where in dynasty rankings. And then on Friday we have a college football roundtable that comes out, and the staff contributes to both of those articles. All the names that you've come to know and love and the staff contribute to those articles. We release those, and so I kind of edit those things, put those out under my name, but I'm kind of like the moderator on those. And so that content's coming out. And you can find me. We have a Patreon on the Devi Royale, and you can find me in the Discord there. I do a Discord for Football Guys Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock. Come chat with me. I have a channel there, and I do start sits on Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock. You can find me I put rankings out in Fantasy Pros ECR, so I'm really just kind of all over the place.
A lot of stuff going on, so I wanted to say thank you again, Jeff, for coming on the show. Since you have so much stuff going on, I'm so happy that you could fit me, little old me, into your schedule. But no, everybody go check out everything that Jeff has to offer, because there's a lot of awesome stuff out there, awesome content, and football guys are just awesome people. So with all that awesomeness, make sure that you come back next week for another episode of Get Real with me, Casey Kasem, and remember to stay rad.